Good morning, guys. So today we're going to be learning about something a little bit different, still related to circles, but a little bit different. We're not looking at things like area or circumference today. Today we're looking at what's called a circle graph. So this is the last thing actually we're going to be learning in this this unit on circles, and then next week we'll flip over and start doing some review of everything that we've learned. But today is the last new kind of thing that we're looking at. So what we're looking at today is this thing called a circle graph. And what it is, it arranges a whole bunch of different things in a circle, and it divides up the parts in a circle into different sections that all add up to 100%. So it breaks down the chart and it divides up things in a circle into parts of 100%. So this particular chart here, it's looking at after school activities. And what it tells us is it's looking at 60 kids who were surveyed. And it asked these 60 kids, what is your favorite thing to do after school? And that information was displayed in this graph. So if we look at the graph, what they did is they asked these 60 people, and of those 60 kids surveyed, 20% said that after school they prefer playing sports. 10% said after school they prefer watching TV. 5% said they prefer reading. 10% said they prefer doing homework. 25% said they prefer playing video games. And a certain percent said they prefer hanging out with friends. And we don't quite know what that is, but we can find that out. We might be able to guess, because if you look here, it's this section of the circle. And we can look that section of the circle, well, it's a little bit more than a quarter of the circle. A quarter of the circle would be right here, and a quarter of the circle would be 25%. So it's a little bit more than 25%, so it's maybe 30 or 35%. We can guess what it might be. But we can actually find out, we can calculate how much that's going to be, because we know that this is all going to add up to 100%. The circle is a complete circle, so it has to add up to 100%. So that's our first question we're going to look at. What percent like hanging out with their friends? Well, all we do is we see what number is missing here so that all of our numbers add up to 100%. Well, we just go around the circle. So 20 and 10 is 30%. Another 5%, 35%. Another 10%, 45%. 45% plus 25, so 45 plus 25, that's 70%. So this section here is 70%, so that means this section here has to be 30%, because again, the circle has to add up to 100. So what percent like hanging out with their friends? Well, 30% like hanging out with their friends. Okay, so next question, which is the least popular activity for kids to do after school? Well, for that, I just look at my circle graph, and I see what's the smallest percent, or what's the smallest slice? Well, it's easy to see. 30%, 25%, 20%, those are big numbers. Here's the one here, reading. So only 5% of the students surveyed like to read. You can see that's the smallest percent, and also it's the smallest slice of our circle. So which is the least popular? Reading is the least popular activity for these students. Okay. So which is the favorite for about a third, or 1 out of 3 of the students? So which activity here is the favorite for about a third? Well, if I look at what is 1 third, 1 out of 3 is, okay, so it's about, remember how we do decimals to percentages, 0.33, that's 33%. So which one is about 33%? Well, you could say maybe video games, but what's even closer to 33%? It's that hang out with friends piece. And also, if you look, it's about a third of our circle. If you think about us dividing the circle up into 3 different parts, it's about a third of our circle that's that chunk. So hanging out with friends is the one that's about a third. Okay, so now we look at how many kids prefer playing video games. Well, I can see quickly and easily that 25% prefer playing video games, but that's not what the question's asking. It's not asking what percent, it's asking how many kids. So for this, I need to go back to look at how many kids were surveyed. So there were 60 kids surveyed. So 25% of that 60 kids preferred playing video games. So how do I find out how many kids, what that number of kids is? Well, remember, we learned this a couple of weeks ago. If we want to find the percentage of a number, all we do is just turn my percentage into a decimal. So 25% is, hopefully you remember this, 25% is 0.25. I want to find out what 25% of 60 is, so I do 0.25 times 60. And when I do that, 0.25 times 60 is 15 students. Okay, so 15 students like playing video games. Okay, so 15 out of the 60 like playing students. And you can see here, 15 out of 60, 15 is a quarter of 60. It's 25% of 60. Okay, let's do that one more time. So how many kids prefer watching TV? So again, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to see watching TV. So 10% prefer watching TV. 10%. So I want to find out how many kids. So I want to find out what is 10% of the 60 kids surveyed. So again, I turn this into a decimal. 10% is 0.10, or I could just write it as 0.1, but 0.10 just so that we see the 10 still. And I multiply that by the 60 to find out what is that 10% of 60. I think I can do this in my head, but let's just use my calculator just to be sure. 0.10 times 60 is, okay, 6 kids prefer watching TV. So 6 kids. Okay, so 6 out of the 60 students total like watching TV. Okay, so that's how we do those ones. Let's do one more example just to make sure that we're understanding this. So here we're given a blank circle graph and we're given some information and we're asked how to fill in this circle graph. So for this one, students were asked what's their favorite sport. 15 students said that their favorite sport was soccer. 5 said that their favorite was hockey. 8 said that their favorite was basketball. And 2 said that their favorite was baseball. So how are we going to divide up this circle graph? So it's already been divided up into the correctly divided up sections. So they're the right size, but we just need to figure out which ones go where. So we need to figure what percentage each of these is. Well, before we can do that, we need to find out the total number of students, because when we find out a percentage, it's going to be the number of soccer students or number of those that prefer soccer out of the total students, or how many like baseball out of the total students. So the first thing we're going to find out is the total students. Okay, and again, I can just do that in my head here. So here's all the students that were surveyed. So 15 plus 5 is 20. 20 plus 8 is 28. 28 plus 2 is 30. It was 30 students. So maybe this was just one class that was asked these questions. Okay, so for soccer, it's going to be 15 out of 30 students. For hockey, it's going to be 5 out of 30 students. For basketball, it's going to be 8 out of 30. And for baseball, it's going to be 2 out of 30 students. Okay, so some of these I think I can figure out just by looking at them, but 15 out of 30, I think I have an idea of where that one's going to be. That one looks like that's just a half, so that's going to be my half, but let's just double check and make sure. 15 out of 30 is, yes, 0.5. That's 0.5. And what percentage that? Well, 0.5, that is half of a whole, but what I can do is times it by 100, and there we go. It's 50%. Hopefully you're remembering this, guys, because we did do this just before spring break. Okay, so which one here covers 50%? Well, this one here. This covers half my circle. So that one's soccer, and it's 50%. Okay, for hockey, what percent is that one going to be? 5 out of 30. Okay, so it's 0.166667. Again, hopefully you can do this just by looking at it. What percent is that going to be? But what we can do is times it by 100. Okay, 16.6. Let's just round that one up to 17%. So it was 0.16. So it is 17%. Well, let's take a look up here. Where would that one fit? Well, this one is about a quarter, it looks like. A quarter would be 25%. So that one's too big for this one. This one looks pretty small. That one doesn't look like it's big enough to be 17%. So hockey must be this one here. Hockey is 17%. Okay, let's take a look at basketball. So 8 out of 30. Okay, so 26.6666. Okay, so 0.26 266 repeating. So that one's going to be times it by 100. And it's going to be 27%. Let's just round it to 27%. Okay, so that one is going to be this one here. Okay, it's not going to be that one. That one's too small for 27%. So this one here is basketball. Basketball. Okay, 27%. Now for this last one, I could do the calculation here, or I could add them up and see what I have left over. So let's do it that way, and then we can just double check after. So 50 plus 27 plus 17 equals, okay, 94%. So that means my last little section here needs to add up to 100. So 94, it would take me 6 more percent to get to 100. So baseball is 100%. Now let's just double check and make sure that works out. So 2 out of 30 is 2 divided by 30 is 0.06667. So 0.0666. Now, if we times that by 100, there we go, 6.6. But what's going on here? It's telling me if I round it, it would round it to 7%. Well, that can't work because I can't have them all add up. That would mean if that was 7%, they would add up to 101. And it can't be 101, it has to be 100%. The reason why that is because remember, we've been rounding these. This one wasn't rounded, but these 3 were all rounded. So that's why it adds up to 101. It's just a rounding error. So it's within 1%, it's close enough. On a circle graph, you can't really tell the difference between 6% and 7%, so don't worry too much about that. Okay, so today we're going to be doing some problems to do with circle graphs. Some might be like this, where you have to find out where they fit. Most of them are going to be like this, where you're interpreting the circle graph. So you're given different graphs that break up the different information, and you're having to find out which section is which, and also the main thing, finding out if you're given a percentage, how do you find out how many students? So just remember for that, first change the percentage into a decimal and then multiply it by the total number of people being looked at, and that'll give you how many people fit into that certain section of the circle graph. Okay, so good luck today, guys. We'll be in touch.